Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio. Once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on UCY.tv. Thank you everyone for tuning in and welcome to the show. We're glad to be back. Took a few days break to head out to the Free Your Mind conference over in Philadelphia, which was really awesome. Got to hang out with some really cool people and listen to some new ideas and some ideas that we kind of already had. But it's really nice to network and hang out with people that we know. But check us out here on UCY 5 days a week, same time, 8 o'clock Pacific time. I think we're going to have a lot of callers tonight, actually, because I've already had to decline 2 calls because we got to get through this info first before we could take a bunch of callers on, because it seems like we're going to have a debate tonight. Because, the hot story is 2016, Hillary Clinton, Rand Paul, all these guys. And, it's a hot button issue, and, we can talk about that and take some calls on that and get everyone's thought on what's going on in 2016. We've talked about this plenty of times. But it's a, I don't know. To me, it's a theater. It's a circus, but we'll have to wait and see what happens to find out, what really happens. But we all have theories, and let's talk about that tonight. I'm joined by my co-host, DB Schwartz. How you doing, man?
Doing well, dude. Just relaxing out here. It's I don't know, like 80 degrees or something. So it was up in the 90s out in Miami now. So heading to Peru tomorrow, man. Pretty excited. And yeah, the Philadelphia concert was interesting. Got to talk to the movers and shakers of, a burgeoning kind of liberty movement going on, and pretty much everybody's on the same page, but they all have different ideas about how to go about getting there. So once we get to that unified consensus, I think things will really start to, pick up a head of steam. We need to have our own political action group, our own PAC, because otherwise we can't compete with these megalithical, multi-billion-dollar, let's just face it, paradigm and status quo pushers.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that it's come to that scenario, and really it has, and it's going to take money to if these guys are going to raise billions of dollars to fight these these political campaigns. I mean, well, then what's going to stop them? Of course,
and they don't mean anything really, because no one's really voting. I mean, they're really not. If we had a 22% turnout for Obama's last election, so you think it's going to be better? I mean, I think people are so disenfranchised now. I think people are ready to look at other options. I think they're understanding that they're paying a massive amount of taxes today on their earnings, which is lower than it should be. And we're seeing corporations like GE getting a nearly $2 billion return. I mean, this system, it cannot persist. It's leeching away all of the creativity of everybody that's trying to become middle class. And honestly, it's going to implode. I mean, that's got to be what they've been preparing for years and years and years. They know the economy is going to implode. They're accelerating it. And honestly, Nick, I don't even know if this election means a lot if things keep going the way it does. I mean, who's to say we even have one?
Well, my big concern is that if we don't make any kind of big, success stories in 2016, we're going to unfortunately probably see the escalation of some kind of new war, which in all signs are pointing towards, horrible things going on with Russia and U.S. ties, and that's really a scenario that people don't want to see. And that's why I think people are taking a great interest. People are taking a great interest in the election because they see that maybe there could be some candidates that may offer a little bit of a bright spot when it comes to foreign policy. But once again, what we're talking about are candidacies, and candidacies are something that are way different than actual, presidency. And we saw that happen with both Bush and Obama, and those are the most recent two. I'm sure it's been going on for a long time. But, Bush ran on this kind of humble foreign policy, and he was actually, criticizing Clinton's foreign policy as being like overly aggressive, overly policing the world and stuff like that. And then we all saw what Bush did when he got into office and, started up wars and a bunch of countries and, made stuff up to start these wars and all that stuff. Of course, it wasn't just him. Other people that were influencing him. Dick Cheney's a huge contributor to that. And then you got Obama, and what we saw happen with Obama, and a lot of people voted for him as a kind of anti-war candidate, as a change candidate, as a progressive. And, a lot of people bought into that last time around, and even the second time around. I know most people, at least most of the activist-leaning, like, progressive people that I know didn't vote for Obama in the second election, but, he still won. But, what we were sold with Obama was this awesome platform that was going to help a bunch of people out, and the middle class was going to be, helped out, and the banks were going to be punished, the insurance companies were going to be punished. But then, we all know what happened. He came in, he came to office, and he immediately bails out Wall Street. Then he passes Obamacare legislation that's basically written by insurance companies. So it's like, okay, he bails out the banking industry, bails out the insurance industry, and then a bunch of people lost their houses and stuff. I mean, it was so crazy. But this is what we got to keep in mind. There's a candidacy, which is people going around. Look at Hillary Clinton. She's like saying, yeah, we're gonna take on Wall Street and all this stuff. It's like, does anyone actually buy into this crap anymore? That's the big question I have, man. Do people buy into this? We have a caller. Absolutely. We have a caller on the line. I can't tell your number. It's an unknown phone number. But how's it going? You're on the show. Do you want to chime in on this 2016 topic?
Yeah. Am I live?
Yep, you're live.
Nice. I'm honestly not too sure about Rand Paul. A big fan of his father back in 2012. I really hope that, he comes in as the peace candidate. If he doesn't, my question is, what are we supposed to do? He's really like the last hope, I feel, for a lot of young people that came up under Bush and having to deal with Obama growing up. What other options are there at that point?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I mean, the first person off the top of the head is Gary Johnson, which has already just thrown his hat into the ring. It wasn't talked about much by the media. I mean, he is a third-party candidate. Jill Stein as well. I believe she's going to be running in 2016 again.
So the Green Party and the Libertarian Party. But, do you even think that that's a realistic shot? Is a third-party candidate ever going to win a major election in our lifetimes?
No.
Well, that's a good question, man. I mean, can it actually happen? The big thing to me, I think, would be is that it doesn't matter even if a Republican or a Democrat wins. It's even if it were someone like Rand Paul, or even if Elizabeth Warren decided to run, even if Bernie Sanders runs as a Democrat. I don't think it really matters because these guys are just part of this apparatus, right? They're just part of this system that is like corrupting to the core. Even the people that come in with good intention You know, I know a lot of people think that Obama actually had good intention coming into office, and then once he got in, then he realized it's like, oh, this is how it is. Okay.
Path to hell is paved with good intentions, Nick. I mean, you can say that socialism is the cure to all evils, but guess what? That just means somebody with a gun takes something from somebody else and gives it to somebody else. The only way we're going to fix it, man, the only way we're going to fix this is break up, dude. I never would have thought I would say that, but from my traveling around, dude, I don't think we're one country anymore. I don't think that it's healthy for us to be this giant mega empire anymore. I think the only way the people save themselves is to destroy the federal government, man, and not in the way that you think, but to break it up.
You see, I really do support that idea, but at the same time, I kind of view that as somewhat of a naive worldview. If we're not this mega superpower, I mean, I wouldn't put it past China or Russia to go ahead and try to claim that spot immediately. Is it necessary to go ahead and have such a large military? I don't think so, but I think that it's kind of naive to think that, you know, somebody wouldn't take our spot. You see what I'm saying?
Well, we would have a mutual defense pact with all the other, you know, mini countries or whatever you want to call it. We're still going to have the best military. We're always going to have the best military. So we have to just keep that basically the only thing that's centralized. Everything else needs to be dictated by the people in their communities, because the Fed controlling everything is screwing it all up, man. It's easy to see that.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah, man. You know,
what
central.
are your thoughts on Ted Cruz?
Oh, well, damn, man. He's on a good one. That's all I can say.
Ted Cruz.
He came in as a whole friend of liberty, and he completely turned his back on the entire movement. I don't know if you guys heard that statement he made a couple months ago where he was he said something along the lines of, if you don't stand with Israel, then I will not stand with you. Any thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, Ted Cruz is like, I mean, I don't know. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing in many ways, like a lot of these politicians are when they're running and when they're candidates. And he's like this, you know, Texas guy that's big on individual liberties and stuff like that, supposedly. And now he's like, you know, he's one of the people that's saying that he wouldn't allow, like, if he were president, he would, you know, he would crack down on states that were legalizing marijuana and stuff like that.
But the people don't want that. We don't want umbrella blanket policies. That doesn't work. And we don't need these people anymore. We really don't even need government. It can be all done through systems. What are these people offering us anymore?
They're not offering anything.
Nothing, except a gun to your head if you don't pay taxes. That's about it.
Hey, we're joined now. We're joined on the call by Manny Aguilar out of Los Angeles. I believe he's on the call now. How's it going, Manny?
What's up, Manny?
No, I am. Got me a hole. What's up, DD? What's up there, Nick? Want to send a shout out to Nick's sister in case she's listening. I sent a message. I said you better start listening to the anti-media. Belinda, what's up, Bernabe? And stuff like that. Yeah, you know, coming back to, you know, what DD's saying, you know, just, I mean, Nick, I don't know. I guess they took a denial field down there in Philadelphia or something. I keep on saying that the only way we're going to change this is by grassroots, you know, basically doing what is happening right now from New York to Washington, D.C. You know, I mean, that's the way, that's what powers me out right now, you know. All these protests are going on, the $15, you know, an hour, which I support a lot. I'm a little bit, you know, kind of emotional about it because, you know, our brothers and sisters in San Quintin, they're marching just to get $2.50 an hour and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be grassroots all the way, you know. And by the way, a lot of states, like Dee said about breaking up the United States, a lot of states have wanted to leave the union already, but they haven't been let go, you know. But a lot of states, they just want to completely separate, you know. So
yeah, Hawaii.
That's going to be really hard. I mean,
I don't even advocate
the Civil War kind of already settled that, no?
Right. Well, the Civil, yeah.
Kind of
I mean, that's
groundwork
a good point,
for that. A couple states want to secede. I completely hear the resentment towards, you know, the large federal government, but you really think that they're just going to let a couple states go? I honestly don't see that happening.
No, of course
but
they
if
won't.
something happened like California, Washington, Oregon, we're like, you know what? We're the West Coast now. This is our country. You know, we're going to shut down your shipping if you fuck with us. We're going to, you know, there's all these ways you can do it. It's just people have to want it. People still think that they're protected by this megalithical corporation that's the country that it pretends to be, and we're not.
Yeah, that's also, as the caller was mentioning with the Civil War, and of course the Civil War had many positive impacts, which was in many ways to end slavery and stuff like that, in the U.S. anyway. But what it also did was it did like create that big. It made it much more of a centralized federal government after the following amendments that were passed to the Constitution right after the Civil War. It centralized the government extremely, and
corrupted it.
Yeah, and it created a bunch of other issues as well. So there was good things, there were bad things. As Manny was saying, I mean, there's a bunch of states: Texas, Hawaii, the West Coast. I mean, in New Hampshire, you got the Free State Project, which would probably want to secede from the U.S. as well eventually. And I think that DB, you're right, man. And at least in many ways, we all know that decentralizing is a positive step, and centralizing is always a negative step, because what it always leads to is those conflicts of interest and
absolutely,
and like the this tyranny where it's like we have such little say in our own affairs. When like we're talking about this 2016 election, everybody that goes out there and votes, the candidate that they vote for may or may not win, right? And then even the candidate that does win, the people that did vote for that candidate, they're probably not going to do the thing that they said they were going to do. So there's such little representation at a federal level that somehow we have to break up that federal power in order to take back representation. I think that's a step in the direction of freedom. Of course, then you still have the problem with the state government, and then people aren't going to agree with the state government. And then even breaking it down to like the county level, I think would even be even more effective, where you just have these loosely allied group of counties that have mutual defense, where like anything happens, they need to defend. They have like a militia that they send, and there's still like a navy that exists that can be used to defend the coast and stuff like that. But right now, the purpose of the military is supposedly to defend us. But
I mean,
what's
we're
actually
not
happening?
really defending anything.
Yeah, what's actually happening is it's aggressive.
We're going over to other countries, stealing their resources. It's a new age imperialism, at least in my view.
Yeah, exactly. It's
not even new age. It's been going on since the late 1800s. It's called gunboat diplomacy. If you have a bigger military, the other person can't say anything about it. There's nothing they can do.
Unless a couple other militaries band up and they take on the big guy. Are you guys familiar with BRICS?
Yeah, but even that, I mean, if you study our military technology and you believe that we're maybe 100 or 200 years ahead of what they tell us, you really think Russia and China can hold a candle? This is all theatrics, man. If you look at, we had the bomb way before everybody else. What do we have now?
Who knows?
Like you were the caller was mentioning actually about if the U.S. empire was was dismantled, that something would pop up to replace it, and I think you're pretty much correct there, because that's what's been happening throughout history. It's always you got the Roman Empire, and then that fractures off, and then it's like East and West Roman Empire, and then one side becomes the Ottoman Empire, But what it really is, I think, is just reactionary, right? So, like, because there's one empire, there's always going to be another group of people that are going to try to be the next empire that's coming up, or to rival the empire that's existing. So then, when the current major power of the world fails, then the next one that's there picks up the pieces and becomes the next major power. And it's like when the USSR fell and all that stuff, and then it was just solely us. And then when we fall, then it's going to be solely the BRICS alliance and stuff, and the China and all that stuff that's going to take our place. So I think what we need to do, and we have to really address this idea of freedom and this idea of new ideas of governance, because we've been practicing these same ideas for literally thousands of years. These ideas of monarchy, oligarchy, feudalism, they're still underpinning our societies as we speak. We've been practicing those things and experimenting with them for so long that I think it's time that we really start to rethink the entire system and get away from this idea of quote unquote representative democracy and parliamentary systems and legislative systems at least at a national level, because for the longest time people have been trying and using these ideas, and they've been failing, and they've been ending in the horrible agony of whether we're talking about the lands that these empires end up colonizing, or the people, the public, the citizens of these empires that end up getting bankrupted and thrown into chaos and all that stuff. It always seems to end wrongly, So I think it's time to rethink this whole process. But the problem is that we can't expect to sit here and say, okay, we have this new idea, let's implement it tomorrow or even next year or even in 10 years, because it's a process that has to go, and it's got to develop, and it's got to be tested and refined before we could even expect it to start gaining support from widespread amount of people outside of just the fringe philosophers and innovators that are actually coming up with these ideas, right? So that's why I think that the 2016 election, it's still a valid topic, even though this whole system is completely trashed. For the time being, we still have to work within it, in order to somehow use that system to spread the messages and to help people understand, what's really going on.
Yeah, well, Nick, you're talking about that. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I think 2016 is either going to be one of the most important elections or one of the most laughable elections since 1964 with Goldwater and LBJ. If you guys follow your history a little bit, Goldwater was kind of the original libertarian as far as a mainstream sense. The majority of what he was saying really resonates with me even today. But, he was defeated it was an incredibly humiliating landslide. And my biggest fear is if Rand Paul takes that Republican nomination and he goes up against Hillary, and what's to say that he doesn't lose, he gets 17% of the popular vote, and then libertarianism is just written off, and nobody will ever even try it again for the next 50, 60 years.
Well, that's another problem, man, is that Rand Paul is being run as some kind of libertarian candidate, when in the most part, he's not really a libertarian. He's said publicly, in 2013 he said publicly that he's not against the drug war, but previously he said he is against the drug war, and then now he's amending. Yeah, of course. But now he's amending his concept to, okay, I may not be against the drug war, but I am okay with maybe thinking about medical marijuana and stuff like that. But this guy has pretty much flip-flopped so many times, man. And but the important part.
Do you think that he's playing the game, or do you think that he's just doing it for his own personal interest?
Well, here's the thing. As you said, he's at the same time as he is so much a part of the establishment, and he's made all these mistakes and stuff, he is still his father's son, right? So that's why I don't think he would ever actually get the chance to be a serious contender. But at the same time, I think that if all things work in our favor, his campaign can be used as a way to spread a certain message. Hopefully, that message will be one of anti-war, looking into the Federal Reserve and those kind of things. If Rand Paul's campaign does that and he doesn't win, I'd be more happy, because I know if he'd win, then he would just become a part of this system even worse than he is already.
Nick, basically, when you're talking about the 2016 elections, well, let me put something in perspective here. We're looking at towards Washington, D.C., right? But right now, I think the country everybody should be looking at right now in the United States is this. Mexico, a country. There's 2 cartels that have taken over the country, and they're going to be killing government officials, and they're going to be killing cops like a mother. They've already killed 15 cops and 5 injured. One of them, I don't want to mention their names, but, pretty much, the new cartels are getting stronger than the rest of the cartels right now. They're just killing every official possible. Ambushing, whatever it's taking and stuff like that. Now, why are the cops corrupted and some of the cops are going to go work for these cartels? For this reason alone. The survey just came out last week, and my sources are telling me that most of the cops that were speaking, they're saying, how can we not be corrupted if we only make $1,000 a month? Think about it. $1,000 a month for a cop in Tijuana. I'm talking about Tijuana, okay? Now we got another problem, that, basically our country needs to be protecting each other. Women are rising up in my own home state. They're tired of all these promises by politicians. They got weapons up to you know what and stuff like that. But this was an interesting news that came from Mexico just a few days ago. Underground news, I call it. Military equipment is going into the Mexico from the United States by the loads. I mean, why is all this equipment going to Mexico? Think about it. A lot of military stuff is there by the United States. Something's going on.
I mean, I was in Mexico last month.
Sorry, hold on. We gotta talk one at a time. But I think we're getting feedback from somebody on one of you guys' phones or computers. Make sure you're on mute when you're not talking, so that we don't get any feedback. I can't tell where it's coming from, but I think we're getting a little bit of feedback. Caller from the unknown number. I think you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I've already lost my train of thought. My mind's all over the place here. Actually, you know what? I got you. I was in Mexico last month. And yeah, there's a lot of U.S. military weapons over there, but you have to take into perspective. I mean, I'm 100% sure that the cops are corrupt, but you know, that's still feeding into the narrative that we're helping the Mexican government defeat the cartels. So that could easily just be written off. That's just my 2 cents on that.
I think the reason why there's military equipment funneling down into Mexico, and it has been for a long time, but I think Manny is basically saying there's been an uptick of equipment, and it's not surprising considering, you know, exactly what's going on down in Guerrero. You know, I mean, down in the Mexican state of Guerrero, there's uprisings, there's autonomous regions popping up where people are kicking the government and the cartels out. I think Mexico is on the verge of a three-way civil war, most likely between the cartels, the people, and then the government and the military or whatever. And I'll tell you right now, the U.S. is going to back the government of Mexico, and they already are by sending them a shitload. We're talking about billions of dollars in aid, and a lot of it military, helicopters, Humvees, guns, you know, all this military equipment they're arming the Mexican government to the teeth. But the thing is like, it's a well-known fact. I mean, it's like almost like everybody knows that the Mexican government is completely corrupt, but yet we're still sending them all these weapons and all this stuff. And, you know, the government of Mexico is directly responsible for the disappearance of 43 students down in the state of Guerrero, where these kids were causing too much of a thorn in the side of the government, and they just made them disappear. The complete story isn't out yet. The bodies of the students haven't been found. You know, nobody knows exactly what's happened, but they know that the cops were involved at the command of the mayor. And, you know, I mean, the corruption runs so deep, but we're arming them up to the teeth, you know?
Yeah, you're referring to Iguala. That happened a couple of months ago. I'm not one for foreign intervention, but I think that one could really state that the U.S.'s national security might kind of depend on, you know, the state of Mexico, what's going on our southern border. I definitely think that we should withdraw any remaining troops from Iraq, from Afghanistan, wherever the hell we've got them at the moment, and I don't know, maybe send a couple troops down there and figure out what the hell's going on.
Yep, and I'm sure you know that's in the plans too, because there's only a couple linchpins left to knock down to make NAFTA a reality, and one of them is the Mexican people. And if they can be subjugated, the American people are so completely, you know, inoculated in this brainwash that they're never going to even notice what hit them. And that's, I believe, what Jade Helm's possibly about, man, is the spillover and getting ready for all that and going down to the southern states. I mean, the border's so porous. There's reports of bases and everything, all kinds of crap. And you know something's going to pop off, and they're not going to get this world order they want unless NAFTA leads the way. So they're going to make it happen.
Yeah, you know, and unfortunately, we're going to be on the government and the military is going to be on the wrong side of the conflict in Mexico. Just as they're on the, I mean, if we want to take an example, real-time example, look at Yemen. Going on right now is massive bombing campaigns and military intervention. I think Saudi Arabia may actually, in the next few days or weeks, they may actually do a ground invasion of Yemen because they're massing tanks on the border and stuff. So, you know, the U.S. is backing this operation. We don't know exactly how, but Obama has even said publicly that they support Saudi Arabia in this. And the thing is, we all know Yemen has been a war-torn region for a long time. Our drones have been flying over there for years. I think the whole entire Obama campaign, the entire Obama presidency, we've been flying drones over Yemen, basically, and killing people, blowing people up. There's been so many civilian deaths and stuff, and that's no doubt fueled, this uncertainty that's going on right now in Yemen. And what's happened is there's these rebels, they're called the Houthi rebels, and they've kicked the government of Yemen basically entirely out of the country. The prime minister had to flee to Saudi Arabia, where he's in hiding now, and they've got like one city left that is their last stronghold, and Saudi Arabia is bombing the hell out of them, and we're helping them do it. I mean, it's just like it's a total support of dictatorship, and that's basically what I think we'll probably see down in Mexico as well. Manny, what do you think?
Yeah, I really start. I'm starting to get scared of that. We're going to see that and stuff like that, and it's just unfortunately that because this government here is corrupted themselves, they're going to protect another corrupted government down there, against the people, and that's what really scares, martial laws and all that. But at the same time, I'm kind of happy because the people are kind of reminds me of a fight, what happened in Puebla, Cinco de Mayo, which a lot of people think it's Independence Day. People here in the United States have no clue Cinco de Mayo, But it was the Battle of the French. Then the French thought, these Mexican peasants can't beat us. Small army like that can't beat us. We're a big army, and they got beat, and they couldn't take over Puebla. So I kind of really see that happening, stuff like that. Also got a question for DD. What have you heard about the Cubanos talking down there in Miami about what's going on? What's their opinion on the Cuba? Supposedly they took them off the terrorist list. Who's going to take us off the terrorist list ourselves? We're we're number one terrorist, so I don't know who's going to take us off the terrorist list. But we supposedly took Cuba out.
Well, you got to.
Miami, DD?
Yeah, you got it. Well, listen, I talked to a guy last night I met, and he was telling me that whole Jade Helm thing really, really did go down, and people saw it, and they recorded it, and they're getting ready for it. And their biggest worry is that Cuba is gonna, basically serve as a launching pad for Russian aggression. So the only way they could kind of get around allowing that to happen was to normalize relations. I mean, it was kind of a blackmail on Cuba's part. Hey, if you don't kind of stop these sanctions, this embargo, we're gonna trade with another big partner. I mean, we have to. You can't just keep us, away from the world economy for 50 years and think everything's going to be okay when we get a chance to get back into it. So
it's history repeating itself, man. History repeating itself.
It's real, yeah. It's happening. That's just one guy I talked to, and I talked to another lady there on the corner, but I haven't really talked to too many people here. But, it's definitely, it's a very highly policed area of the country. You see a cop everywhere. They shut down the freeway while I was trying to get to my hotel for a good 15 minutes for no reason, just because they can. And there's copters everywhere. So this is if you want to see the future of big cities, here it is right here, man.
Wow. Wow. Do you think that communism in Cuba will die with the Castros?
Shit. I think it's going to even spread here, possibly.
I honestly don't know too much about the situation, but I think that it could be a good thing, especially if they completely end the embargo and Cubans are allowed to travel to the U.S. and vice versa. I think that it might, show them that they don't have to live in a third world country, and hopefully that will, somewhat inspire them to go ahead and transfer Cuba into a thriving country. And only time will tell.
Right.
We'll figure it out.
And there's always a chance they could become a commonwealth as well, once they see what's going on with Puerto Rico. I mean, nothing's far-fetched at this point.
I think it's, exactly. Of course, on the surface, it's a great thing because embargoes are just, embargoes are horrible, especially on a non-aggressive state like Cuba. Cuba is not a country that's invaded people. It's not going around arming rebels and stuff. I mean, that maybe a long time ago, but they haven't done that in, 30 years. So it's good that we're ending this embargo because let's think about it. Who does the embargo actually hurt? it only hurts the public of Cuba. It doesn't actually hurt the Castros and all those guys. They got all the money anyway. So, I mean, they get all the stuff they need. They probably had an internet connection. They probably do all the stuff they need to do. But it's the people that get affected worst by the sanctions and by the embargoes. And so those kind of things are almost always a really bad idea. If they were going to talk seriously about embargoes, they would just start with arms embargoes where they don't sell weapons to the regimes. But normally they're still selling weapons in Syria. You know, they're still selling weapons to Turkey.
That's our only export, Nick.
So yeah, they're not serious about embargoes. They just do it out of horrible reasons of coercion to try to starve the population of Cuba, to make them turn on the government so that they can fund some kind of phony revolution so they can install their own puppet. I mean, that's what these guys, this is textbook stuff, right? And that's what's you know, to me, it's like, okay, they're finally normalizing ties with Cuba, which is awesome. And I think the Cuban population is going to benefit greatly from this. And I think the U.S. population will benefit greatly via cultural exchange, immigration. You know, these are all things that are awesome and are, you know, help us out economically. Yeah, and the cigars, man, there's a huge market for Cuban cigars. That's a multi-billion-dollar industry that's going to be opened up. And, you know, we've been so used to having to smuggle them in from Mexico and stuff all the time, every time I go on vacation and stuff. But no, that never happened. But
you know what? You know, it's funny that the guy told me that I was talking to said, "Hey, now I can go get free health care."
Oh, oh man! Wow, no. Yeah, thank you, Nick.
They get free education down there too, correct?
Yeah, I think if you have the grades that they pay for everything. So yeah, it's just, you know, it's a different way of life.
I hear they have some of the best doctors in the world. So I don't know.
I've heard the same, especially in plastic surgery and stuff like that. They're pretty much at the world standard. So,
yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know that Cuba would want to be a Commonwealth of the United States. Puerto Rico, the people in Puerto Rico, I know they already want to leave the United States. They want to be on their own, independent. To be honest with you, yeah.
They voted for that a few years ago and they turned it down.
Yeah, but you know, it's just kind of like that Scottish independence movement, man. Think about the propaganda that was probably pushed on these people. You know, the popular voter probably, you know, the 50, 60, maybe 70% of the people probably agree with it, but they're so shit scared of the shit that was fed to them on the media that it's like, oh my God, if we vote to independence, we're going to be so effed, you know, we're not even going to be able to live. But, you know, that's the kind of stuff that we saw coming out during the Scotland indie vote. And, you know, I've talked to a few people from England and stuff that witnessed the whole thing, and I was sitting next to a guy on the plane when I was coming into Philly. He was from Wales and stuff, which is part of the UK, and you know, we were talking about it, and you know, he was telling me about the media propaganda, and so much to the point where he was convinced. And then later on, he realized, oh damn, I made the wrong decision or whatever. But yeah, you know, and it's very much so, it ties back to this whole electoral process. You know, 2008. I mean, they fed us this Obama character that was going to fix everything and stuff, and we see that all it's done is really just prolonged the agony a little longer and made it a little worse in ways, and maybe a few little bright spots that, you know, they throw us a bone every now and then, you know, and they, you know, give us a couple cool things and stuff. But in the end run, you know, in the long run, it's like the essential properties, the essential functions of this, you know, horrible empire have remained intact. You know, the foreign policy, the police state, the surveillance, the drug war.
They've become so much worse. I mean, could you imagine what would happen in 2008 if people would just like no to that bailout and they just marched en masse and they made it go away, and we let the economy collapse in 2008 before they had a chance to build this police state up? Could you imagine the better position we'd be in?
Yeah, but the problem is I hate to say it, but most Americans aren't informed. They don't know. You get a couple philosopher types, a couple people in the Liberty Movement, a couple smart people in the Green Party, and they're really the only ones that recognize these problems. The vast majority of the public is obviously concerned with, you know, whoever's Bruce Jenner turning into a woman or something like that. Nobody really knows, and I don't think anybody really cares.
Not yet, but they will.
Hey, DB, we're getting the feedback.
You know, completely catastrophic to go ahead and change the general public's perception. But I mean, can you imagine like what would happen if they took the internet away certain people, like, they would probably revolt, but I mean, you literally almost had the system stolen from underneath us, and nobody even really flinched. They just said, "Oh, it's a recession. These things happen."
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yep.
It's sad.
And you know what happened before the Great Depression? There was like a decade of recession. So, you know, history does repeat itself, especially with funny money. I mean, when we turned our gold in 2013, that was it. That was the death knell. It just took 100 years to actually hit. You know, we've gone to war and we've kept our way of life up on this fake printing press, bombing the hell out of anyone that doesn't want to take our money. And now I guess they're just tired of it, or maybe we're just getting infiltrated from within. We don't know anymore. It doesn't matter. We just have to come up with something better, and we have to do it really quickly.
Yeah, man, it's all part of this evolutionary process, and that's what we gotta look at it as, and that's why even if people vote, I mean, one thing that really caught my attention, and I'm normally not huge on the voting thing, but in California we passed what's called Prop 47 here in the last elections, and it defelonized all personal drug possession. So basically, like, literally, if you get caught using heroin on the streets in California, you're no longer going to get picked up and thrown in jail. I mean, and this is a major, that's a major win in the drug war arena, So in the end, it's, a lot of people say the voting process is completely irrelevant and stuff like that. And in theory, like when it comes down to it, I think that in a perfect vacuum, people will be completely self-governing and voting, it will never have to happen. But the current state of affairs, I think it could be used in, a way that could push us in the right direction. Now, back to this Cuba thing, because it ties back in with 2016 in a couple of ways here, and we can touch back to this character, Ted Cruz, in a second here, too. But the thing with Cuba, I think that we should also look at is that, there wasn't, like, I don't remember there being, like, this crazy, at least recently, this crazy, like, movement to have normalized ties with Cuba. It's like, why is this just being thrown at us, like, out of the blue? It's like, where is this coming from? And that's why I think what DB was saying is probably leans towards the true reason why we're trying to normalize ties is because we are in this neo-Cold War era now with Russia that, we want to preemptively take Cuba back under our fold in order for Russia to not be able to, and I think that's the thinking behind what's really going on there, because I don't, there wasn't really any huge, movement for people to say, hey, let's get back with Cuba and stuff. That was just like thrown at us. It was just out of the blue. It's like, hey, everybody, all of a sudden, like, we're cool with Cuba again. It's like, okay, cool. That's awesome news. But like, why is it actually happening? Well, it's geopolitics, man. They don't give a damn about the Cuban people. They don't want to normalize ties to help the Cuban people. They were putting sanctions and embargo against them to hurt the people, to try to get the people to make, civil strife against their government.
Nick, I think what happened was Fidel got poisoned, and they told Raul the same thing was going to come his way, and he said, "Fine, I'll be your puppet."
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But either way, it's like they're back. They're slowly coming back into our fold, and we're keeping them out of Russia's sphere of influence. This is Cold War maneuvering, man, and that's what's scary. And that's why, that's why I'm worried that, and I'm not so worried about the president, but like, look at the Senate and the House. I mean, it's already basically in the hands of the Republicans. Yeah, the Republicans that are and you got to look at when you get the bipartisan votes, it's always those warmongering Democrats too that are voting in with the Republicans. And then there's just a few people that will abstain, but there's just not enough of them. Hopefully, considering that the federal, like the presidential election is obviously the one that is the most watched, the most controlled, the most manipulated. I think people can make strides in local elections. Not much is being said about local elections right now. It's all about Hillary, Rand, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio and stuff. But it's those local elections where people actually have a better chance of of really making an impact. But here's the thing that's kind of curious about the timing also of the Cuba thawing is you got Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio that are both actually of Cuban heritage, right? So I think Marco Rubio's father was a Cuban immigrant, and then I think the same is true of Ted Cruz.
Cruz's father served under Castro. He regretted it later in life, but he did serve under Castro.
Yeah, so that's another curious aspect that I think we're going to see, and I really think that this really applies to the Hispanic community a lot because I think what we're going to see, and I've been calling this for for the last year and a half, 2 years, but I've been saying that it's going to be Marco Rubio is going to be the candidate that runs against Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton obviously is the chosen candidate to lose because she's obviously going to be the Democrat candidate, but she has no chance in hell in winning. So it's actually going to be like just Marco Rubio as the shoo-in or whatever. And I think that they're trying to pull on the fact that the Hispanic community is one of the fastest growing communities in the U.S. and it makes up a great portion of the population percentage.
It's the political block right now.
Yeah, and
if you want to win the presidency.
Yeah, man, and also they're trying to make sure that there's not going to be any kind of counter movements within the Hispanic community because they're trying to use this as a tool to make people more complacent, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm pretty sure this is a scenario that's going to play out. I could be wrong. We'll revisit this after the election's over and see. But I think this is a very interesting tone that's going to be played out. And the whole timing of the Cuba relations, I think, plays into it somehow or some way. And I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
You're spot on. I've been saying that for years.
About the Latinos, we a lot of us Latinos consider Rubio a very dangerous person, so I wouldn't want to vote for him. Let's put it that way.
I hope you're right, Manny. I hope you're right. But then again, who's the other choice? See, that's where we need the third party. I mean, if anything, Latinos are mostly libertarian. From what I talk to, they just want to work and pay low taxes and be left alone.
Yeah, I myself am Mexican. I'm in California. I'm also a libertarian. The vast majority of Mexicans I would not say identify with the libertarian narrative. They've just kind of been fed this whole Obama, Clinton, Bush type thing. Most of the Mexicans that I've spoken to about the 2016 election, at least in Southern California, I'm in Orange County, everybody's talking about Clinton or Jeb Bush. And I feel that they just kind of recognize the names and it kind of gives them a sense of belonging. But I feel like they may be playing on that. And I can definitely see, if Clinton wins the Democratic nomination, I can definitely see her choosing some sort of Hispanic to go ahead and have as her running mate.
Yeah, and keep in mind that Marco Rubio speaks Spanish, and that's a really big advantage that he has.
So does Jeb Bush. Though.
And also,
a Mexican woman.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. Also, Jeb Bush's wife is Mexican. So we're starting to what I think we're starting to see here is this trend where the Republicans are really going to try to appeal to the Hispanic community in the coming election. And so we got to understand that that's truly just most likely it's just a co-opting of what is a huge potential, a potentially very strong political force in the country, which is the Hispanic community. The Republicans are going to attempt to co-opt it in 2016, man. That's what's going to happen, and I just hope that we can try to prevent that from happening because of the amount of people, the amount of momentum that they bring, that the Hispanic community can bring to this idea of freedom, man, is so huge, and we can't let it be convoluted by these party politics that we all know are complete garbage.
Well, we need to take their political action down in South America and bring it up here. Like, for instance, when they were trying to privatize all the water in Bolivia, the people said, hell no, and 1 million people slammed the streets, dude. And that was it. Nestle left. So we have to bring that whole willpower up. A lot of people are just too complacent, and they're just trying to survive now, but they don't understand how truly wealthy we are as a country and how we should all have basically everything we need and not have to worry about anything. And they think it's okay to struggle and normal, but it's not. And we need to bring the whole willpower, the ability to protest en masse. Unless people want it to devolve into violence later, which is going to be awful for almost everybody, we have to get active about it, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I mean, we constantly see it happening. They always try to co-opt. They always try to hijack any movement, any energy, and These are like well-known tactics. So we have to be careful about that moving forward. Build on ideas that can't be hijacked. They're not ideas about following some leader, following some movement. It's all about, personal, people personally taking the action in their own lives, connecting it with people near them, and then those people connecting it into a community, and so on and so on and so on. Like I was saying earlier about this whole voting process and how after the Civil War it got too centralized. I mean, we just got to break it all the way down to where the most power lies in the single individual to make decisions, and then they can voluntarily agree to going into bigger organizations that they need to survive and that they can contribute to or whatever. That's the way we got to keep breaking it down, man. But it's going to be a long, drawn out process. But I think, here's the whole converse side of this argument about 2016. And I've thrown this around a lot, and I kind of have a lot of respect for this idea, is that we actually want to have a burned out election where it's like Hillary Clinton versus Jeb Bush, where it's just the most burned out thing that's ever happened. And I think something like that would actually lead to more people questioning what's going on, because it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it's like the same families, these same played out, corrupt, warmongering people, like they're going to win they're going to be the president again. I think that would also, maybe we don't want a good candidate to win, because if we have a horrible candidate, more and more people will start questioning things, and that's the whole other side of this thing. And that's why I almost I would never sincerely vote for any one of them, but I might root for it to be Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush to run,
Why is this even an issue? Why are we even talking about this?
All right, so I think you're a new caller. I'm sorry. You came on and dropped a few times. I wasn't sure if you were having an issue with your phone or something. But we have a caller from 256. How's it going? You want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I'd love to, because I feel like at this point we're talking about reality TV. I mean, we're talking about the worst of the worst, and we know what they're about, and they're really going to parade them up there in front of us for another year and parade their nonsense out there. And what are we going to do about it? That's really the only question that's left. I mean, isn't that right, in a sense?
Yeah, I mean,
it sucks because we have to wait for critical mass, guys like me and you and people that know what's up. Because if we go out, we're targets and we're gone. And we have to wait. But if people don't wake up in time, the noose tightens too tight, and then it's over with. So it's a delicate balancing act, man. It's rough for me to live here sometimes and see what's going on and see so many people in the street just with no clue of what's going on, and then try to educate them, and me being called crazy. I mean, it's a thing we all go through, and it sucks, and it's a thing people have gone through in the past in history before an empire collapsed due to whatever reason. But we're seeing the beginnings, if not the middle of that, and the chances to get through this unscathed get lower and lower every day. I mean, at some point, are we going to go, hey, if my family won't even listen to me, and am I just going to jet to a different foreign country or something and wait this out, or come back and try to fight it out? I mean, where's it going to all end, and what's the end game going to be? We just don't know.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of a soft landing, so we need to start building localized networks now. And this whole joke of a system that they've built up around this whole phony idea is going to have to, sooner or later it comes to an end, and this isn't any kind of conspiracy or anything like that. If you look at empires throughout history, there hasn't been a single one of them that never came to an end. I mean, every empire ends eventually.
The only one, dude, but they're 90% Han. They have ethnic glue, so you know what I mean?
But how many different empires has China had? I mean, they've fought. China's been fighting itself for the past 3,000 years.
Right.
But the empires always rise and fall, and it's not some conspiracy theory to ask, when is the U.S. going to come to an end? Because it's just a fact of life. And the average lifespan of a fiat currency is something like 37 years, and we've been on one since 71. So our time is pretty much due, and it's something to think about, and that's why I think it's so important to get out there and establish new ways of doing things with your neighbors and with people that are close to you, because in times of and even if we're talking about in times of in times of like natural disasters and things like that, we've seen it multiple times where the stuff that's in place that's supposed to help, like FEMA and the local police and all that stuff, they end up failing. Hurricane Katrina is like a perfect case example of what happens when there's a widespread natural disaster and the authorities just abandon ship, and then everyone's basically left to fend for their own. And that's exactly, I mean, even if we're not talking about this system coming to an end in the next 15, 20 years, I don't know how long it's going to take. It could be drawn out for another 100 years or longer. But even to just be safer about natural disasters, and at the same time, it's way better economically, because anytime you make local dealings, you start taking away from the corporatocracy that basically monopolizes over our lives, whether we're talking about through government force or choices on our food or whatever. They monopolize on basically all of that stuff. So the more you can work locally and break away, and when we were in Philly this weekend, we saw Josh Bush speak about like freedom cells, and they're talking about making just like little groups of like 8 people, which is the perfect example. If anyone wants to check into it, just Google freedom cells or go on your search engine. But they're talking about making little groups of 8 people, and like
some
just
kind of terrorist organization.
No, man, they're just it's basically just people that come together that like share food. They have a mutual defense agreement. They protect each other. If they get robbed at their house, the other people come to help them, and all that stuff.
So essentially, what you're promoting is anarchy.
I mean, this is what they're doing is they're practicing. They call it agorism, which is building alternatives to what is already existing, and in the hopes that they could build something more efficient.
But it is anarchism. It is. It is anarchism.
You guys don't forget to love the planet on Earth Day. Love the planet, because that's very important also.
Yeah, that's coming up this week. We're going to be in Balboa Park on Sunday. There's a bunch of good stuff happening here in San Diego. Some of our friends have a few booths. The March Against Monsanto is going to be out there. That's coming up pretty soon. Here in San Diego, we have a re-energized march because the San Diego, our city is actually suing Monsanto right now because they've basically poisoned our entire bay. With PCBs, which is this chemical that was banned back in the late 70s, early 80s. It was some industrial chemical. They use it in shipbuilding, and we have a huge shipbuilding industry here in San Diego, and it poisoned the whole bay, and so they're suing Monsanto to try to receive damages to clean it up. We all know it's not going to be cleaned up. That stuff you can't really clean that stuff up. It gets absorbed by the wildlife, and it never breaks down, and it just moves up the food chain. So eventually it's like... eventually it's like the sea lions that, the sea lions eat the tuna or whatever, and now the sea lions have the, have the PCBs in them, and that's maybe why they've been dying off at the beach so often lately. We've had hundreds of them, washing up ashore, and so it's pretty messed up. But yeah, this is coming up, and Monsanto, we got to keep in mind, it's not just about GMOs. Like the GMOs are like the least of Monsanto's crimes. Yeah, it's what's going on right now because this whole herbicide resistance, GMO crops, which leads to more use of glyphosate, and glyphosate is most likely a carcinogen, and it's caused all kinds of other disruptive problems in the body. So it's not even just the GMO stuff. These guys have been around. They've been poisoning entire regions. They poisoned our whole bay here in San Diego. They poisoned entire cities, towns, a bunch of people that have worked with the chemicals. Agent Orange, I mean, they're tied into all this stuff, and that's why Monsanto is such a huge topic. It's like, why in the hell is this company able to still exist? It's like they need to be completely shut down because they've killed and maimed and caused birth defects to millions of people. I mean, we're talking about war crimes. Who should be, strung up at the Hague? I mean, that's Monsanto. The people that were involved with that company are the ones
How
that
are we
get done.
supposed to feed the world?
Everybody's got to grow food, I guess. Everybody's got to grow food. That's the only thing.
It's impractical. Think about somebody that lives like in Alaska. I mean, they're fertile, or their soil's not that fertile. I mean, they live in the freaking snow. I think that Monsanto gets a very bad rap, and I think that Agent Orange is absolutely terrible, and I'm sure that they've done various atrocious things, but at the same time, they kind of do serve a purpose.
We're coming to the end here, man. Appreciate your comment. Call him next week. Thanks for listening in.
You guys are great.
We'll be on tomorrow, same time, same channel. Catch you guys later.
You guys have a great night.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.